So last week I dropped my long-term review of the iPhone Air, and for the most part I had a lot of good things to say about it because it is Apple's boldest iPhone since the iPhone X. It's thin, it's light, it's beautiful, and it's something that goes against the status quo and the monotony that was Apple's iPhone lineup. It's nice to have a breath of fresh air with the iPhone Air, for lack of a better term. But after living with it for about 100 days and using it as my main phone, there are two big issues that continue to come up day after day, especially for my personal use case, and then also one smaller issue which is a little bit more obvious. For me it wasn't an issue, but I can see it being an issue for people moving forward. So with that being said, let's talk about the untold truths and issues of the iPhone Air and why this phone, while albeit is amazing, is only for a small subset of people. Let's get into it. Now, before we kind of start to talk about the downfalls of the iPhone Air, I still think it's a beautiful and a very special device. It's the first time in a long time that Apple prioritized feel as well as experience over the spec rating and making sure that it can do pretty much anything that you throw at it. And that's, again, like I said earlier, a breath of fresh air for this iPhone Air. And I think it's a little bit more of a proof of concept than anything else, especially moving forward to this iPhone Fold that should be coming later this year. But everything from the material choices like sticking with titanium to making it feel ultra lightweight, the brushed sides over here as well that really make it shine and feel like a piece of jewelry, the thinness, the feel in the hand, it truly feels like a brand new phone and it doesn't really feel like it fits in Apple's lineup, and that's why they didn't call it the iPhone 17 Air and just the iPhone Air. And all these things are amazing and they give you that wow factor that in the beginning makes you overlook some of the downfalls and some of those compromises that Apple had to make. The first one being the USB-C port. The USB-C port for me, especially the way that I use my iPhone and I use the camera and the data and the large video files, the USB-C port for me is a little bit of an issue. Now, it's not going to be an issue for everybody because not everybody's using their iPhone for videography and using it in a professional standpoint, but for those people that are, or even for the people that like to take a lot of 4K video or even HDR video, this could be an issue in terms of transfer speeds as well as charging speeds. The USB-C port is a 2.0 USB controller, meaning that the transfer speeds from a data standpoint are much slower than the Pro iPhones, even dating back to the iPhone, I believe 15 Pro when we first went USB-C. So for somebody that uses their iPhone to shoot a lot of B-roll in their day-to-day, moving them out of the iPhone itself and moving over to an SSD, because I use an app called Blackmagic Camera, so these video files don't live in my photos library. I like to keep them separate from a business standpoint. I usually plug my Lexar SSD or a Samsung T9 or something like that, and then offload that footage and then delete it after the fact from my iPhone to not take up any storage. That process is extremely slow, especially if you are somebody who has had an iPhone Pro level model and has been used to those USB-C 3.0 controller transfer speeds. Now, to give you a little bit of context in terms of the juxtaposition between both of these iPhones, the USB 2.0 controller gives you 480 Mbps when it comes to data transfer speeds, while the Pro level iPhones give you 10 Gbps, so gigabit per second, which is about 20 times faster than what the iPhone Air can handle. So if you start to kind of open that up to something maybe that's 10 gigs, that's 15 gigs, 30 gigs in size when you are transferring something out, it does take a long time, it's very frustrating. And it's something that I've had to deal with over the last couple months of me using this iPhone Air as my main iPhone because I was using it how I needed to use my iPhones in both a personal and professional standpoint. And then weirdly enough, I actually get faster data transfer speeds when I'm on Wi-Fi and I use AirDrop from my iPhone to then move it over to my iPad or vice versa. So again, the wired data transfer speeds for me have been a detriment to my experience using the iPhone Air. And then again, when it comes to that USB-C port, that's also how you wire charge, and it peaks at wire charging at 20 watts, meaning you can go from 0 to 50% in about 30 minutes, which is actually even slower than the regular iPhone 17, and much slower than the iPhone 17 Pro when it comes to wire charging, where the iPhone 17 Pro and Pro Max peak at around 40 watts of charging speed. So unfortunately, the iPhone Air does give you those wired charging speeds that are relatively slow, and it kind of, again, goes into the whole battery aspect, which we're going to touch on at the end of the video. And now let's talk about a more obvious issue, which not a lot of people deal with, is going to be the camera situation. Now, I don't really like to harp on this too much because, again, if you're getting the iPhone Air, then you are fully aware just visually that you have 2 less cameras, depending on where you're coming from, or 1 less camera if you're coming from the 17 models. Because again, you are dealing with that main sensor, which is technically the same main sensor as all the other iPhones, so it's a great single sensor, 48 megapixels, it'll crop into 2x digital zoom, which Apple is calling optical zoom because they're cropping into the middle 12 megapixels. Again, a lot of marketing verbiage, but for the most part, that camera does well. Your day-to-day photos look good. If you're in direct sunlight, they look great. If you have a subject that's close up to you, of course, this is still going to be a great iPhone camera, and also a great video camera as well, as long as you don't need to zoom in or zoom out. Again, if you stay in that 1x, maybe even to the 2x, the second you start to crop into 4x, 8x, 20x when it comes to digital zoom, it definitely breaks down much quicker than you originally anticipate. So again, the camera's great until you need a little bit more. And I'm talking about personal experience here. For most people, maybe that one single camera will be enough for their day-to-day, but as a parent, I started to notice that I'm missing both of the other cameras. For instance, that ultra-wide lens. The ultra-wide lens, when I have my daughter in front of me who's only 3 months old, and maybe she's resting on my legs or something like that, the ultra-wide lens is something that I would use a lot with the 17 Pro. With the iPhone Air, I have to like hold my iPhone all the way behind my head almost to get the same kind of feedback or the same kind of crop that I would get with the ultra-wide camera, which is very unfortunate. So I found myself missing that ultra-wide lens a lot, and also I like to do some POV video of me opening Pokemon packs and things like that. So having that ultra-wide lens on the 17 Pro is something that I use very often, where I ended up missing it over time. And then the crop, right? The telephoto that you get with the 4x and 8x optical zoom on the iPhone 17 Pro, even though the 8x is still just more marketing jargon from Apple, it's truly just a 4x optical zoom. It is a fantastic 4x zoom, especially again, I have a 4-year-old, if they're doing dance recitals or gymnastics from far away, or they're playing an instrument, I can crop in and zoom with that 4x lens and still get a 48 megapixel shot with no pixelation or no noise coming through. So as somebody who takes a ton of pictures, both personally and professionally, the iPhone Air just falls a little bit short in terms of how I use an iPhone camera. Again, if you're going into the iPhone, you are fully aware that you're compromising from the camera situation. That's the most obvious compromise that you see. So overall, that's something that you probably already know, but I did want to reiterate that while albeit in the beginning, I didn't miss it, over time with my different use cases, I started to miss those other cameras. And then my final gripe with the iPhone Air is going to be battery. And now this one is again more on the obvious side. While you visually can't see the battery, you are aware that the iPhone is pretty much half as thin as an iPhone 17 Pro and Pro Max, so you know you're going to get a smaller battery size overall. And for the most part, I would get to the end of the day some days with about 10% battery. If I use the camera a lot, especially for video, or if I'm playing a game for an extended period of time, or if I use it in my workflow and I don't charge it throughout the day, then yeah, I'll get maybe to 7 o'clock and I need to charge this iPhone. So for some people, this is not going to be a big issue. And for me, I called it a medium issue because I am home and I work from home. So I always have ways to charge this iPhone, whether it is with MagSafe or wired in. So it's very rare that I get to the end of the day unless I'm testing it with very low battery. But I can see this being an issue for people who don't work from home, for people who don't have a desk job, for people who are away from an outlet for 12 hours at a time. That's something that you're gonna have to take into consideration. If you're somebody who uses their phone medium to heavy use and you're away from a way to charge your iPhone Air, you're gonna run out of battery at the end of the day, right? You're gonna need to bring some sort of MagSafe battery pack, some sort of external battery to be able to charge this thing, because you will not make it a 12-hour day if you do use it medium to heavy usage without some sort of external battery to power this thing up. And Apple was clearly aware of that because they created that MagSafe battery pack that is only for the iPhone Air and only fits the iPhone Air. So I just wanted to make people aware that if you do work from home and you are at a desk and you can charge your iPhone Air, it's not a big deal. But if you're away from an outlet for 8 to 12 hours out of the day, you might have issues making it to the end of the day with your iPhone Air. So as I said, the iPhone Air, I actually love the device. I love Apple's kind of foray into this space, how it's all about design first and spec second, but I just wanted to highlight these compromises as somebody who used their iPhone for a long period of time and really understands what it's like to own all the different kinds of iPhones, whether it's a Pro model, the regular, or now this iPhone Air. And a lot of these things are missed in the beginning because of the fact that the early review window doesn't expose the slow data transfer speeds. It's not until you really get into your routine of using your iPhone in that situation where you start to realize like, oh wow, this is actually just as slow as a regular iPhone model, which is kind of unfortunate, especially because it has an A19 Pro chip. You'd think they would also include the Pro level USB-C port, but maybe that's an issue for the iPhone Air 2. And then the camera situation, or the camera downfall and compromise, is something that only shows up over time when you are using it in different environments. So again, these issues are a little bit more on the niche side, and you know for the most part who you are if you want the iPhone Air over the 17 Pro, Pro Max, or even the regular 17. If you're a creator like me who relies heavily on data transfer speeds, you might need to avoid this iPhone or use another camera that's a little bit more dedicated like I have been doing. And for people that are coming from an iPhone Pro, like if you're coming from a 15 Pro, 16 Pro, or any of the Max options, then you're gonna see a downgrade in hardware capabilities compared to the iPhone Air. So at the end of the day, who's the iPhone Air for? It's for those people who value the design, they value the feel, they value that portability, slimness, that lightweight feel, and are okay living with those compromises to have this beautifully made device. Because I do think it's their best looking iPhone since the iPhone 10. And through this testing period and using this iPhone, you can definitely tell that this iPhone Air is not trying to be a pro level iPhone. It's trying to bring some of the greatness of the pro level iPhone, like the 120Hz ProMotion, the A19 Pro, the C1X modem, things like that, which are still fantastic and pro level, but Apple definitely had to make some compromises from a price standpoint and also from a battery life standpoint to help this thing out. So my closing statement is that the iPhone Air isn't flawed, but its limitations do show up in places that Apple doesn't really highlight when they were selling it during Apple's keynote, and it's only visible when you use it over a long period of time. But that'll do it for this video, everybody. If you did make it to the end, leave a little dolphin and leave some comments down below about what you think. I know that I made my long-term review of the iPhone Air last week, and for the most part spoke very highly of it, and I still feel that way. I just wanted to highlight some of the downfalls because, again, the iPhone Air isn't going to be for everybody. It's for a small set of customers and users that just want to get the latest and greatest. It's going to be for that smaller subset of users that don't really care for the pro level features and just want the most beautifully made iPhone possible. But that'll do it. Like I said, everybody, leave some comments down below of some questions you have about my use of the iPhone Air. And if you guys want to watch more videos like this one, definitely check out one of these videos right here. And until next time, I'm Fernando. Peace, everyone.